This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL, but we're the ones that have encouraged you all along to like and share them on social media and with all your friends and neighbors personally, because it's all about nutrition and all about Joanne's World of Nutrition, brought to you by Nutrition World and hosted by Joanne Seeger.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's having a fantastic morning post-Halloween.
Oh, sugar overdoses all over the place with
So,
the kids.
of course, the topic of this morning is going to be glucose, which we call sugar, right? So hopefully my listeners are alert and focused and not in any kind of sugar coma. But if you are interested, I'm going to give you a few hacks in case you're feeling a little off this morning and you might have indulged in a few too many candies or something else. I've noticed some of my neighbors participate in Halloween, not with candy so much, but with some alcohol.
Now that's sugar too in its own way.
Yes,
yeah.
I was kind of cracking up because I see they had a big cooler for water bottles, which I think is a phenomenal idea. So if you have not tried to give out water bottles for Halloween, it's such a great idea in the neighborhoods because these kids really get sugared up and they need hydration, which I'm going to go into in more detail. But yes, so they had two coolers, the water cooler and then the beer cooler. And then what they had was a table of shots.
Oh.
So it's like, wow, we got some festive neighbors, that's for sure.
A little complicated in the
Yeah, wow.
festivities.
But oh my gosh. So yeah, I definitely decided to do the radio show on some hacks to help get that glucose spike down or to help you get rid of that brain foggy, glucose overwhelming feeling that I don't know about my listeners, but I can't stand when I feel that way. I always admit that I do love my sweets, but I have learned what tricks and what rules to follow through the years so it doesn't become such a detriment where it affects my mood, my sleep, my mobility. So I'm hoping that I share these with you. You can maybe use them right away or just in the future if you ever get crazy with sugar.
We had a new dilemma this year. We bought a bunch of candy for little trick-or-treaters,
Right?
and our grandchildren, but not the grandchildren, but their parents, the kids, ate up all that candy.
Oh, yeah.
And then had to take their kids trick-or-treating to get some more candy to take from their kids. Well, if you're gonna give it to them in the first place, you should really give it to them. But taking it makes it mean.
There was a few stories last night that I was hearing, but like one, I heard my son at the door, and we put everything in like one of those plastic buckets to let the kids pick it out. And I hear him say, "Oh, take as many as you want." I'm like,
help
"Wait,
yourself."
wait." I'm like, "Hold on here." I'm like, "We got a big neighborhood. I want to let it last." And then my daughter took the bucket out there so they wouldn't even have to bother ringing the doorbell, which I've noticed. I don't know about in your neighborhood, but in my neighborhood, everyone's setting up kind of like stations at the end of their driveway so kids don't have to go to doors. Do you have that in your neighborhood?
Not really. We got so many security cameras all over everybody. So
Oh, well, I just thought it was odd because I remember growing up, that was the excitement where you knock on the door and you have that anticipation and a little nervousness about saying trick or treat. And so now if it's all just right there in the sidewalk, it's just like grab and go, bye.
well, we were kids. We didn't care. It was free candy for
Oh,
us.
true. Yes, it's true. I was telling my mother-in-law last night, which they are so cool. They came over last night dressed up. So applauding my in-laws for that effort, because a lot of people as they get older kind of forget about that stuff.
So what can we
But
do that
so
we've had so much candy
I
over
know,
there?
right? Right. Well, first of all, we have to do some breath work for sure this morning
yes.
because I definitely need it. Okay, I didn't go crazy, but just a little bit for me gets me my mind in a little spin. All right,
Okay.
so let's all just take this moment to really be conscious of our breath, and let's exhale out any stress, anything that feels uncomfortable in our body. And we're going to do a deep breath in through our nose for 5. And we're just going to exhale for 5. We're just going to keep it super simple.
We're going to
Okay.
hold it in the middle?
No hold. So look
No
how
hold.
easy I'm making it for you this morning.
Wow.
Okay.
I could
And
do that.
and easy for me too. So 5 in through the nose, 5 out through the nose, and let's do 3 rounds. And everyone really participate. Okay. So if you're a newbie, welcome to the show. Please participate. You'll feel better. All right. So let's drop
Through
our
the
shoulders,
nose,
close our
in.
eyes if we're not driving.
Right.
All right. Ready? Let's all
Let it
exhale.
all out. And I'll begin now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You went in and out that time. In again. 2, 3, 4, 5. And out. 2, 3, 4, 5. And one more time. 2, 3, 4, 5. Out. 1, 2, 3, 4,
Wow.
5.
I definitely feel better. Definitely feel better. So I want to start with talking about candy, okay? Because there are a lot of people that are like, well, it's just a few little pieces of candy. It's not like the real sizes. So I looked up all the sugar content of all the minis, and
Ew.
those tiny little, I mean, they're not even a bite. It's like, it looks like someone took the real candy bar and shaved off for an eighth of it, right? It's still 14 to 30 grams of sugar, depending on which one you pick. So Snickers, Twix, Milky Way,
Hershey
Reese's
Kisses.
peanut butter cups. Yes, I didn't see much of that last night coming through the kids' bags, but a lot of the chocolate bars, which I kind of like that idea, because usually it's all just like the Skittles and the Sour Patch and all that really sugary, no fat or protein buffering. But yeah, it's a lot of sugar. It's pretty much in 2 minis, okay, just to give you an idea, in 2 mini candies is what an adult, okay, when an adult should consume in their entire day. And I don't know how your kids are eating for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but I know it's a battle in my house to get kids to eat all the right things and avoid sweets and starches in general. So if you're putting a few little candy treats on top of an ordinary American day, then you're already way beyond the sugar content just to start there.
This is
So
a special edition of Joanne's World of Nutrition called the Post Halloween Support Edition.
I love it. I love it. We'll start holding meetings after. But again, I don't like being all doom and gloom, because I do live in the real world, having children and a grandchild now. I definitely get that we want to enjoy these different holidays and kind of have these memories, okay? But so here's some tricks, okay? So I am stealing all the info from the Glucose Goddess, and so the Glucose Goddess. Wow, what a name that she's been given. Love it. She is a scientist and a biochemist. She's absolutely famous on the internet and Instagram and YouTube, and so she went into her job about, I'm going to say 4 or 5 years ago. And the assignment was to test this medical device that tested glucose 24/7. Okay. So it basically, nowadays, everyone knows about these devices, I feel, right? You know about them, right?
Oh,
That
yeah.
you can get glucose testing all the time. So, but back then, before these medical devices were tested, you had to only prick your finger and see the result. And so it was really annoying for most people that were diabetic. So this medical device definitely caught her interest, because as she was testing herself and her team, she noticed these huge changes with glucose when she was feeling like all the symptoms of a glucose spike, which, in case you're not familiar, they're not fun when you have glucose spikes and the symptoms: headaches, anxiety, peeing frequently, extreme thirst, dry mouth, insomnia, restlessness. I mean, do I need to go on? I mean, I think that's the things you feel immediately, not long-term effects. So she was seeing a correlation in her own personal life with what her moods, what she was eating, how she was sleeping, how much energy she had, and her glucose number. So as a biochemist, a scientist, and she's also, like, I think, a mathematician, and she loves numbers. She just started, like, really getting a bigger and bigger group and using all others' research as well for her numbers, and realized that most people, and I definitely agree, do not want to completely restrict their diets of sweets and starches. Okay. Most do not. And unfortunately, that is leading to $1 billion epidemic of diabetes or pre-diabetes and obesity. So she's like, okay, instead of approaching this like a lot of, nutritionists have done in the past, where you just tell someone, well, just stop having sweets, just stop eating starch. She was trying to find hacks, or tricks or rules to get the glucose spikes to be not as serious. And one of the studies she mentions is one that Stanford University did in 2018. And that is where they took people that were not diabetic or not pre-diabetic. Okay, so really important to note that, because there's a lot of people out there, doctors and dietitians, that argue with her saying, oh no, you don't have to worry about glucose spikes unless you're diabetic or pre-diabetic. And Stanford kind of proved all that theory wrong, because they took this regular, healthy, functioning group, okay, with normal blood sugars, and showed that common foods spiked their glucose so severely that it does lead to a higher risk of Alzheimer's, dementia, and heart disease. I do believe it's a lot more, but again, if there's not a patent, if there's not a pharmaceutical or not even a medical device involved, then they are not going to spend the money to hire research teams and have double blind clinical studies. So I am very lucky that I think that we have this glucose goddess on our side giving us this free information, because again, these studies cost a lot of money. They in her group, they have surveyed hundreds of thousands of people throughout the years, um, checking on not only their age, their sex, their weight, their food cravings, what they're eating, their glucose. That's a lot of information to take over the years, and very expensive. So I think we're really fortunate to have this information, and we use it as we want, right? So here we go. Let's talk about some of the hacks. The first one that she mentions, I kind of giggle at, because I feel like I learned this, at school many, many, many years ago, okay, which is doing veggies first. So doing veggies first is important, not only because it's fiber, but it's nutrients. You'll see, if you really look at the literature and you look at different disease pathways, it will say that those, one of the common threads along those people's diagnostics is that they might be deficient in, say, B1 or B3 or B5. They'll show all these similar deficiencies. And that is because if you have too much refined glucose, okay, so I'm going to kind of step back. So I'm using the word glucose, but keep in mind that is also referring to all the OSEs. So sucrose, fructose, glucose, whatever you want to call it, the body will break it down to glucose to use it.
Thick, gooey,
So,
syrupy sugar.
oh yeah, like, we bought a pumpkin pie, and I gotta call this out real quick. from Fresh Market, and we love Fresh Market. It just opened in our neighborhood, and we bought it was buy one get one free pumpkin pie. I thought it'd be a nice thing to have for people coming over for Halloween, and it had high fructose corn syrup in it. I was so upset because even though they don't try to pretend they're, a health food store by any means, they're a gourmet grocery store, but still, like high fructose corn syrup, use real sugar if you're gonna make a pumpkin pie, not the syrupy, gross stuff that we know is so detrimental to our health. But thank you for letting me voice my opinion on that one. I just hopefully they hear this. Okay. So let's go back. So that's what I'm discussing today. So when the glucose spikes, it usually is an overconsumption of anything starchy, carby, and not healthy for us. Okay. All right. So we'll start with veggies. Okay. So again, we're bringing nutrients in that are usually deficient in us in general. A lot of people in the world have stopped doing the whole salad and vegetable first, and instead, the bread rolls are coming to the table, or just the big sweet drinks, and or soup even, and they're bypassing the vegetables. So really, if you can just bring some vegetables into your body before anything else, or even when you're having a glucose spike, it's never too late to try. Okay. So even if it's an hour after you did a big handful of candy and you really don't feel well, your head feels spinny, headachy, blurred vision, very thirsty, go ahead and try the hack now, but it works best first. Okay. So you do the veggies first. So you can do a big tray of cut up veggies or have a salad. But her next hack is definitely something that I've also heard over and over and over again, throughout the years. So I do love that she's making this common knowledge. And that's using apple cider vinegar. So I know my husband, oh my gosh, he should have a t-shirt that has an apple cider vinegar bottle on it, because he recommends it for everything and anything, and I absolutely agree with him. It's inexpensive. You can dilute it down where you barely taste it, but there is so much information about people using it in their daily lives, whether it be as a salad dressing or just taking it diluted in your water bottle to help digestion, acid reflux, elimination, just overall feeling better. But and those are That's why I think Matt turns everyone onto it, because he uses it for his acid reflux, or I should say past acid reflux, and every day, and he it just makes him feel so much better. But she's suggesting that if you have this as well, whether it be on the vinaigrette or diluted as a serving in a glass of water, it will drop the glucose spike by 30%. I mean, that is a huge number. So if you are planning on having something like a grilled cheese sandwich, or a piece of apple pie for dessert, or a cookie, and just have a little vinaigrette. It does have to be like a good tablespoon of vinegar onto the salad, okay? Or maybe like a vinaigrette where you dip your I think they call it crudité, where some restaurants used to serve that nice, olives and cut up veggies before your dinner. But give that a try. Vinegar is so awesome. Now, I always thought that it had to be apple cider vinegar, raw, unprocessed, with the mother in it, which is that murky stuff that you see on the bottom of vinegar. But she said, based on her research, that it does not have to be the Bragg's apple cider vinegar. You can use red wine vinegar, you can use plum vinegar. And when I went to school, the family that I lived at, the Japanese family, we use plum vinegar and rice wine vinegar for pretty much every dish. Even making the sushi rolls, the nori rolls, you always use those vinegars. So I think they already kind of had the idea of what healthy steps to do. So if you do enjoy those rice wine vinegars or red wine vinegars more than apple cider vinegar, then go ahead, give that a try. Definitely delicious in a vinaigrette. But please do not do the one that's like the heavy balsamic vinegar that has corn syrup. Once again, this thick glucose syrup added to the vinegar. I know that a lot of fancy restaurants use it, but it's really full of tons of sugar. So try to stay away from that, okay? So just the real vinegars and not the cleaning vinegar. So that is just way too strong in the acid, and that's why it's for cleaning, not for consumption. Okay, a lot of people are still using that white distilled, real too strong vinegar for their body, just way too much. Okay, so there we go. So we got some veggies first and vinegar. One of the questions I had for her that I haven't found the video, the research. I will be buying her book soon. Is how many veggies? Like she hasn't said in any of her videos, like what's the quantity? Because I know when I look at children and their consumption of vegetables, it's not too much. It's a handful. Like they might have, like a quarter of a cucumber dipped in dressing or, a little bit of carrots. So is that okay? Or is it a big salad? So I'm going to keep looking for that answer. Or if my husband is listening, if he can research that, because when I was driving here, it's like, oh, wow, that can be different for everyone. Because one thing she points out is that every single person is different. We are not all alike when it comes to glucose. Like I'm postmenopausal. Even if I consume the same foods I did 20 years ago, my glucose spikes and drops would be different. And that's just, I'm the same human, but just a different hormonal status. And she says that with her scientific team, they were all different, even with the same foods, because it doesn't depend on genetics, but it does depend on your metabolically activity. So I guess all the choices you've made throughout the years, your hormonal profile, your weight, and what stage of life you're in. So yes, so it really does matter. And you can't, go by what your husband or significant other is doing. You have to do what's right for you. And that's why, again, she loves that whole glucose monitoring 24/7 because you can see the result right away. And I do want to make a point that she makes a point right before we go on break that glucose is important. Every cell runs on it. We do need it to get our tissues, our muscles going, our brain working. But her point is we don't want to do it with all these spikes that are so damaging. She made one comment saying the more spikes you have, the shorter the duration of your life is. And that's a pretty scary thought, but I absolutely agree with it. I know from my personal life and the people I work with, the more they're spiking their glucose, it doesn't matter how they try to trick their doctor on their once a year annual test for glucose. If you're spiking it, you're damaging your body. So when we get back, we're going to keep going with some rules and tricks and hacks to help keep that glucose stable. I'll be right back, everybody. Hi, this is Joanne from Nutrition World and Wellness Center. I am really excited to introduce new guests and topics to my show every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. here on WPSL, where my listeners can call in on any topic. If I don't know the answer, I'll try to find it. We want to help you become the best version of yourself. We'll have naturopaths, coaches. I am looking forward to sharing my years of experience with my listeners so we can enjoy this life journey together.
Visit Joanne's Nutrition World in the Kras Square, formerly known as the Arcade Building, located at US 1 and Orange Avenue, across from Port Pierce City Hall. Open Monday through Friday from 10 to 4, Saturdays 10 to 3. Taking appointments for the Wellness Center online at joannesnutritionworld.com or call 772-464-3598. Join Joanne Seeger as she guides the Treasure Coast to health, one person at a time, on Joanne's World of Nutrition. Now on a new day, Wednesday mornings at 10 on WPSL.
I am so excited to share with all my listeners all the cutting edge health topics of today. I look forward to hearing from you. Remember, it's a live call in show. Any questions you have on health and nutrition, I look forward to answering.
Join us here for Joanne's World of Nutrition every Wednesday morning at 10 on WPSL.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
We now return to Joanne's World of Nutrition. Once again, here's your host, Joanne Seeger.
Hey everyone, thank you for spending some time with me this morning. We are talking about glucose spikes, of course, post-Halloween show. We definitely had a great night, and I hope all of you guys did too, whether you participated or not. But really, my husband and I, we hate the feeling of a glucose spike. We try to be really good, but, we're human. And so we're like that headache, that really brain fog feeling, just feeling a little anxious or nervousness, really. And I didn't sleep good at all. It was terrible. So definitely have to make some better choices next time, or maybe implement more of the hacks that I'm going over this morning. So I will keep going, but I do want to mention for anyone that is booking detox days at our wellness center, we are coming into the season here in our local area, which I so appreciate, the cooler weather and seeing all my snowbirds. But we book really fast during this time. So if you do want a detox day, which is only $99, you get the full hour massage. You can choose from the infrared sauna, ion foot detox, PEMF, pulse electromagnetic frequency bed, and soon to come the sound healing room, which is so close to being complete. Only $99. So you get to choose two of those services plus the massage, but we only do them on Thursday, Fridays, and Saturdays, and the massage therapist can only handle so much. So please book in advance. I don't want anyone to be disappointed, especially throughout the holidays. Okay, there you go. That was a good promo quick. All right, so we talked about doing veggies first. Not sure about the quantity, but just eat a nice little salad bowl maybe, or a cup of vegetables. You never go wrong with veggies, right? No matter what healthy plan you're on, definitely do the veggies. And vinegar, okay? So whether you add it as a vinaigrette or add a little to your water, and you can drink the vinegar pretty much before every meal, even if you don't plan on having something sweet, and it will still add wonderful health benefits. The next hack is exercise. Now, I do remember when I first began doing triathlons, there was a whole group of, predominantly men, that would do these really long runs or really long bike rides as part of their training, and they would carb load before. So as an older woman getting into this little sport activity, right, and totally not in the shape that they were, I was like, oh, I can probably participate in this carb loading. Like, I'm going to totally trick my mind and pretend that I am as fit as them and metabolically active as them, and I'm going to carb load. They would literally, because a lot of the sponsors would bring, like Natalie's, they would bring their orange juice and their grapefruit juice, and there would be someone that had bagels. It was always like tons of bagels and butter and juice, right? Now, I never normally ate that stuff, but I just wanted to pretend I was as metabolically active as them. So I would do that. And man, I would go in a spike and then a slump. It was absolutely terrible. Okay. So when I talk about exercise, it will not just totally take away all that glucose running, which a lot of people believed. So if you are metabolically active and your body, again, is that body type that can process a lot of carbohydrates, okay. But if you're not, if you feel terrible cravings coming on, thirst, brain fog, you are not metabolically active. So don't mess with that stuff, okay? So when I say the exercise hack, it's not for post carbohydrates, it's for pre carbohydrates and sweets and starches. So you only have to do about 10 minutes. And I do have to mention one funny story. So we had a friend's son visiting for Halloween. That's 5. And Matt, we have our mini rebounder, which I tell all my clients I keep right in front of the TV. Okay. I've done that since my children were 2 years old. And that basically leads to having them be more active, because sometimes in a house, what are they going to do unless they get outside, right? So Matt told Jordan, "All right, Jordan, you have to jump on the mini trampoline for 5 minutes if you want to have another piece of candy." And so he was doing a hack without even knowing he was doing the hack. And Jordan literally was jumping, having a blast, and ended up, just wanting a little bit of that piece of candy. So it worked out perfectly. So this hack is for pre-sweets and starches and carbs, okay? So just 10 minutes of moving. You basically want to contract those muscles so that way it needs the glucose, okay? Like I mentioned earlier, the body does need the glucose to help the muscles, okay? So let it work that first. And so that way, that thing that everyone's probably hearing about all over now, insulin resistance, um, doesn't occur. Your cells want the glucose, they're receptive to the glucose, they're opening up and saying thank you. So just some exercise, okay? And if you haven't tried a mini rebounder, they're economical, they're very convenient to have in a house. You can, just throw it under a bed or lean it into a closet. Some of them collapse in half, even, but we just keep ours out. Not only do the dogs love it, but the kids love it. So definitely give that a try. I remember the days that we would all take walks before our meals or after our meals. I kind of miss that. I feel like not everyone is doing that like we used to do. So maybe give that a try. It's a great bonding experience for family, right? And so just have that time to talk about the day. Even better, maybe have the veggies, then take a walk, and then have your meal. I know that's a lot to ask. I haven't implemented that idea yet, but I really think it makes sense. If you're putting in more sugars and you haven't even utilized the ones that you already consume throughout the day, that body is going to get damaged from all that sugar. And whether, again, you're diagnosed with diabetes or pre-diabetes, please don't wait for that one number to change. I do think it's really sad because sometimes people will be one number under the red range, and they don't get any conversation with their providers. There's no phone call because the chart wasn't flagged. It was in normal range by 1 point. And then all of a sudden, the next year, while tons of damage has been occurring, then the doctor is like, okay, now you're diabetic, or now you're pre-diabetic. And then there's an urgency, and unfortunately their solutions are usually prescriptions, or gosh forbid they tell you to start eating 6 times a day, and with the carb intake, and definitely will incur more insulin resistance. And as you can see in our country, the numbers are growing of this issue, so those solutions are not working for us. And if you're not familiar with insulin resistance, I have done shows on it in the past. You can look up on YouTube. But one of my favorite analogies about insulin resistance is that there's an elementary school with 300 children. They call recess. All the kids go out there. They start getting really hyper and riled up. And meanwhile, all the teachers inside kind of decide to strike. They're like, you know what? We don't want to deal with these kids anymore. They're too much for us. They're causing problems inside the classroom, so we're going to lock our doors. But the bell rings after recess. All these kids charge back into the school, into the hallways, but none of them can get into the classrooms because all the doors are locked. And so they start causing some destruction in the hallways, ripping signs off, knocking over garbage pails, right? So that's insulin resistance. That's my favorite analogy, I think, as a mom, because it's basically all that glucose is the kids in the hallways, okay? And it's going to start causing problems in our circulatory system and in our immune function, because the cells are the teachers locking those rooms, okay? If the cells say enough is enough, I don't need anymore because it only needs a tiny bit to function, then you're going to have insulin resistance and then damage will occur. So really keep an eye on that, okay? And again, just like with the vegetable hack, okay? So just try a little. Even if you don't love vegetables, try a little. And with the exercise, if you don't have great mobility, you don't have thing, do the breath work that I talk about every show. Breath work is an exercise. If you don't think it is, try it and then you'll understand, because some people like, oh, Joanne, no problem. You want me to do 10 minutes of breath work? Sure. They go about 2 minutes and they're like, wow, this is exercise. It absolutely, it's working your lungs. It's bringing in oxygen, which is kind of important. I don't know. What do you think? I think so. Okay, so the next hack, so I have to say that Cliff made a comment about this hack. So you asked if Reese's peanut butter cups have, or are they candy or protein? Was that your, what was this? What did this mean?
That was Greg dropped that note on
Oh,
there.
Greg did. I should have
Watch out,
known him.
he drops bombs in
I
here.
know, he always tries to throw me off. So yeah, he asked, is Reese's peanut butter cups candy or protein and iron? But I have to tell you, do you know whether this was joke or not? That people do think this. So they will pick
Peanut
some,
butter usually is protein.
right?
But
Absolutely.
that's not peanut butter, that's
But do you
sugar-coated
know
peanut butter.
it's true though? So it is true. So the glucose goddess showed in her findings, okay, that if you do consume protein and fat, okay, um, it's better to do it before the sweet or the starch, okay? That so that if you wait 15 minutes, the glucose spike could be 70% better, improved, okay? I mean, that's crazy numbers, right? But that's 15 minutes before. So combining it though, so like having peanut butter, so instead of saying a bag of Skittles, having the Reese's peanut butter cup, yes, your glucose spike will be lower. It will not go up as much if there's some protein or some fat in the meal. But she does emphasize not an excuse to consume the things that are very detrimental, because there are other mentors that I have that have done research like on things like donuts. Okay, I think everyone understands a donut is not healthy. I hope at least all my listeners know that donuts are not healthy, right, sir? You know that donuts
Only
aren't
for
healthy.
experimental purposes.
Yeah, there you go. So because so some people will say um, it's because it's fried, but it's also the combination of the fat and the sugar. So when you put fat and sugar together and especially fry it, that's kind of like a very lethal combination. Okay, so keep that in mind, that just because a sugary substance has some protein or fat in it does not make it healthy, but it will drop the glucose spike a bit. But when she's saying to do the life hack of having protein and fat first, she means having, a piece of, say, grass-fed beef with a little pat of butter on top. That would be what she's implying. Or have a piece of, free range grilled chicken with some olive oil on top. That is really what she's getting at. She's trying to spread this information to improve everyone's health, not make them unhealthier by using these tricks to kind of fool the body. The body never gets fooled. It needs nutrients, and empty calories are empty calories no matter how you look at it. So you can't avoid nutrition. And that's why I always tell people, some people get hung up on what diet plan to do. And because there is such a difference of opinion on different plans, they will use that as an excuse. Well, then I'm just going to forget it all and just, do what I want to. But there are underlying, like I said, I learned this stuff 38 years ago about like vinegar and eating veggies first, right? And there's one story that's online that in 1970, this nutritionist stayed with this family in France, and they did the same exact thing. They had a big platter of vegetables first, and then they waited a few minutes. They conversated, they, walked a little bit, and then they had a little protein and little cheese cubes, so this information is just, she's just kind of putting it in scientific terms for us to understand, but it's about nutrition. It's about using logical mindfulness when you're consuming your food. All right, so here we go. So we're doing veggies first. So it's about fiber and nutrients first, then some vinegar, then some movement, exercise, and then having your protein, fat, and then of course your sugar and starches. Okay. So one thing that I thought was interesting is I always told people, if you're going to have something sweet or high in carbohydrates, please have it earlier in the day, because that's when the brain is working. That's when you're working. You're not sitting at home on a couch watching Netflix. You need those calories. She said in terms of scientific finding and glucose spikes, that doesn't matter so much. Okay, so just to put that out there, that for glucose spikes, it really doesn't matter what time of day you have the carbohydrates. There's some neurohacker, I think I'm saying his little labeling correctly. He does always suggest having lots of the carbohydrates in the morning when your cortisol's high. So I was kind of understanding that, but she does say it does not matter. But again, to check your own individual needs and where your glucose lies. I think that's what the most important thing, important takeaway is. I have a radio show listener that's asking me how to find information on the glucose goddess. So, all right. So let me tell you that Marlene, good morning, Marlene. So she is one of my favorite snowbirds, but she's not coming back this year. So I'm going to miss her dearly. Okay. So Marlene, her name, I should have that right available to you. So I'm going to ask Matthew, my husband at the store, to get, I call her Jessie, but I know she has a last name, but as everyone knows, I'm very casual about last name. So Matt, if you can help me out and find the glucose goddess's last name. And then there's a great video that she just did on the station, Zoe, Zoe, she was in discussion with a doctor that she also works with, and they do go back and forth on this oh my gosh, let me just get the name for you. Here we go. So I'm just going to have too much quietness. All right. So Marlene, Matt's going to get that information for you because he's much better with technology and getting these details. Okay. So, and she has a book as well that I have not bought yet, but I heard some really great reviews about the Glucose Goddess's book. All right. So let's go back to glucose. There is one trick that Dr. Berg, when I took his course, he always suggests to do. So if you don't have the ability to have one of those 24/7 glucose monitors, if you just take one of your meals, like your main meal, so let's call it your lunch, and have the blood testing kit where you get that one drop of blood 2 hours after. He believes that is very effective and to see if you have the insulin resistance or if your pancreas is working well and handling all the glucose that you're giving. So most of us are really regulated eaters. Like we eat the same things usually every day, unless we're going to an event or a wedding, whatever. But I know I eat the same thing almost every day for lunch, especially I'm at work and, I go until I can go home and eat the majority of my calories at my home. So unfortunately, a lot of us do that habit. So if you have that, so if lunch isn't much and you're just grabbing a quick bite, test your blood sugar 2 hours after and see how if it's stable or not. And then also do that with your other main meal. So if you're eating more than 2 or 3 main meals a day, you can do this often. You don't have to do it every day. That'd be a little annoying, pricking your finger. But you can kind of get an idea of what she's talking about, how different food affects you. Like I noticed rice affects me so much more than pasta. Okay. Pasta still affected me, but not as much as the rice. So that's a little trick that I do. I keep the blood sugar test kit at the store. And so if I'm having something and I'm really kind of like not sure how I feel about consuming it, I'm like, was this a good choice? Was I mindful about my choices? Then I test my blood sugar, and sometimes it kind of gives me a good number and I know I made a right choice. But one thing she points out, when you mix alcohol with your food, I didn't know this. I was kind of surprised about this. It does keep your glucose spike down, but not necessarily a good thing. So, alcohol, we all know, is a poison, not great for our liver, okay, and other reasons. It also makes us very dehydrated and thirsty. But the mechanism between keeping that glucose spike down a little bit, it's the negative outweighs the benefit of having that glucose down just a little bit. Okay, so keep that in mind, that you don't want to do that life hack. So if you do read about that, definitely. Oh, I got the information from Matt. Okay. All right, Marlene or any other listeners interested, her name is Jessie, Inchauspe. No wonder why I didn't recognize her
It's a
name.
hyphen over the E.
Oh, it's a hyphen. Okay, hyphenated. Wow, yeah, that's a tough one. And also, he has let's see. Oh, okay. So glucosegoddess.com is her website. So glucosegoddess.com, and I know she's all about Instagram as well. So there we
We'll
go.
have to get her on the show one of these days.
Oh, wow, wouldn't that be
She could
incredible?
join the ranks of people like Terry Naturally.
I know. Do you know I
Burt
have a
Golden.
lot for the new year? I have a lot of bookings with Terry, Lexi, a lot of naturopaths and veterinarians, holistic veterinarians. A lot of cool stuff happening for New Year. I can't believe we're talking about the new year already and Thanksgiving and holidays. Wow,
November, yeah, we're almost there.
crazy, crazy, crazy. All right, so really, I just really want to emphasize with when we talk about glucose and fructose and sucrose, there's so many people that are trying their best, like myself, to eat really well, be mindful, have nutrient dense foods. But our food industry does an amazing, amazing job of hiding so much sugar. One of the biggest ways they hide so much sugar is the serving size. I have noticed in many products, all they do is change the serving size on the package so it looks lower sugar. So if you're used to eating, say, 3 cookies, okay, and now you look at the side of the label and it says, oh, okay, 7 grams of sugar, and you're like, oh, this is great, right? Well, now it's for one cookie. Okay, so now you're gonna be having, 21 grams of sugar, with just that one little dessert that you're used to having. So be really conscious of where your sugar is coming from as well. Juice is still a big issue for me because people still believe that juice is healthy. I have a very good friend who does know health. She is very familiar with a lot of the aspects of nutrition, and she was drinking grapefruit juice. Okay. And so you have to be really careful. We are not intended to consume, especially as a liquid, 35 to 45 grams of sugar. Doesn't matter where it comes from. And remember, fructose, the liver has to deal with fructose. So please be very, very careful. They are great, especially at liquid beverages. I noticed when I went to Panera the other day, they had on their drink machine, we usually get sparkling waters. That's our treat. So they have a couple brands where it's not flavored at all, with no artificial sweeteners or sugar. It's just a fruit essence. And even the carbonic acid, as you know, Burke comes on my show all the time and tells us. So it is like our little restaurant treat instead of like a soda or a different beverage. But I notice now on the machines, they have the sugar grams of those. So those really healthy looking green tea, hibiscus drink, all the ones that the healthy minded person might pick, all of a sudden you see 65 grams of sugar. And that's the small size cup. Whoever orders the small size cups, I know everyone's ordering the big, huge cups. So, and then most of the time they're refilling it. So please be very careful of that, because they love deceiving us with this marketing and packaging. Okay. We really have to keep our glucose spikes down, so that way we have more quality of life and quantity, and do not have to bring in the fear of Alzheimer's, dementia, or heart disease. These are things that are in our control, and just taking the first step in bringing more nutrition in, more fiber, more vegetables. And the most important one that I'm going to leave for last is hydration, water. It should be obvious, but I know ice cream stores used to, and I still think they might, always had water available as a pitcher on the top of their counters, or a water fountain. And why is that ice cream shops always served water? That's because you start consuming all that sugar and you get thirsty, right? So if you remember, all the old-fashioned ice cream shops always served water. And so you need to hydrate all day long for a billion reasons, but especially to keep that glucose from damaging your heart and your mind and your brain.
We're not walking to the ice cream shop anymore.
Yeah, no.
So you got to have a rebounder and water.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're driving everywhere now, so that's a great point. So let's move more, let's breathe more, let's drink more water, and really pass on this message, because believe it or not, some people don't know these things. Okay, guys, thank you so much. Bert's on with me next week, so definitely don't miss next week. Thanks so much. Have a great one.
That's glucosegoddess.com. Hey, you've been listening to Joanne's World of Nutrition. This is WPSL, Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.